This is the Master Marketer Show, powered by Proofpoint Marketing. Each week, we explore the mindsets, skill sets, and tool sets the top B2B marketers use to drive results. Gain actionable insights, one masterful, revenue-generating success story at a time. Let's get started.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Master Marketer Show. And today we've got David Rush with us, who is the CEO and founder of a company called SmallWorld. We're going to be talking about our favorite topic, relationships. And more specifically, we're going to be talking about referral programs. So, David, I'm going to tell you a little bit of an anecdote, if you will, and to start. Now, I want to get your thoughts in response to it. So, we generally tend to work with technical professional services companies, so consulting groups, commercial construction, et cetera, et cetera. And I often talk to CEOs because it's, again, often services based. They built their organizations. They're often CEO founders, things like that. And one of the first questions I often ask is, tell me a little bit more about your business. Where does the majority of your deals, where does your revenue currently come from? These are $25 to $100 million organizations, sometimes bigger. And usually the answer is it's some combination of employees, past clients, current clients. I'm like, so sounds like it's mostly relationship based. Yeah. Like, what percentage? Usually it's like 70 to 90% is that. I'm like, well, that's a really large percentage. Like, what's stopping you from accelerating that? And generally, some way, shape, or form, they get to, referral, we can't depend on referrals. They're not predictable. They're not scalable. We can't really build our business in that way anymore.
Yep.
What is your response to that? How do you react to that?
Yeah, I think it's a natural reaction for them to say that, because I think what people typically think of as a referral is something that is inbound. Something they're sort of, reacting to, not as comfortable to ask for those referrals. There may not be a process in place. They're also thinking about customers, I think, that refer that would have had a great experience with them, which is certainly one constituent that can make a referral. But to your point, this can be really anyone within the ecosystem of the business that has a relationship to that company, that has an experience with that company, and it can extend to those people that actually know the target prospect and what might be timely or relevant to them. So I think one of the things that we're trying to educate the market around is this idea of a referral, doesn't necessarily need to be the customer initiating an introduction and it only being customers or a partner. Frankly, it can be this expansive number of points of connectivity that exist throughout the ecosystem of a business and beyond. And so there's a world of possibilities out there that, again, it's just a translation of what a referral really means.
I love that. And Gabby and I sometimes tend to fight over who gets to talk next. Gabby, you go ahead.
Well, I think it was a perfect segue to really talk a little bit more about mindsets, because, you talked a little bit about this misconception around where do referrals come or what they are, who initiates them. If somebody out there wants to start a referral program, and for reference, our audience is mostly B2B marketers. I would say probably all of them are B2B marketers. What is the mindset that do you think somebody going into this idea of, hey, I want to implement a referral partnership program at my company? What's the initial mindset that they need to embrace to do that successfully?
Yeah. I think, again, partner programs in a lot of cases are already set up, but for a lot of companies, it's new to think about activating all of your employees as people that could, refer, let's say, a former colleague that they worked with. If they're an engineer and that company sells into engineering, it could be a referral into that target company where they used to have a relationship with somebody that's at that company now. So I think, customer referral programs, once again, have typically been customer success manager has a great meeting, quarterly business review. Hey, do you know anybody else in your industry that's solving some of the same, challenges that you are? Where if there is a program that incentivizes those customers and gives them a place to make those referrals, proactively, but also enlist them when it's visible that they know someone. Those can be terrific because that just creates sort of this incentive structure for new cohorts beyond a traditional partner program when they think about referrals.
And kind of digging into that a little bit more, I mean, I think a lot of folks that are thinking about implementing a partnership program, if one is not currently in place at their company, I think the mindset is immediately, okay, let's talk to current customers and let's talk to people in our network, people that we know that are either service providers or adjacent companies to what we do, vendors, etc. And for that, it's pretty, I would say that's the logical place to go. But, you talked about really activating your employee base. In that situation, do you feel that the mindset should be that employees should want to give referrals regardless of whether there's remuneration? Or do you think that it's better to remunerate an employee to nurture this type of behavior?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think at the senior levels, they are not looking for any type of compensation. If it's a board member, advisor, an executive, they're intrinsically motivated to help the business and don't necessarily need that. If we think about employee referral programs for new hires, there's typically a built-in bonus for those referrals already. And so what we're finding is the companies tend to mirror that program and to say, hey, if you can make an introduction into a target company and that leads to new business, we'd be happy to reward you with a commission that's similar, a bonus structure that's similar. So I think it just dovetails off of what's sort of already in place with traditional referral programs for employees and plays nicely into them having a new incentive to want to help.
Interesting. Maybe dig in a little bit deeper, because it's something that we've honestly kicked back and forth and struggled internally, which is, does creating the incentive, does that go against culture to a certain extent? So maybe I'll leave it at that. I don't want to lead the witness. What are your thoughts about that? It's
a very delicate thing, right? So we believe that any of these introductions have got to be made with trust and authenticity. And the last thing you can do is damage that trust that's been established with whoever you know. And so, through our system, we actually have access to an external network where there is an expectation that it's relevant or timely, or it's not a request that should even be made, right? And so to your point, this idea of incentivizing, someone and matchmaking and just paying them for a meeting can become it can pollute the whole concept. But when there's a match made, right, when there's mutual benefit, and there ends up being a business transaction, that typically people feel more comfortable with that because they're really trying to deliver value to both parties. And I think that's the mindset behind it. And to your point, you don't need to have an incentive structure to make this work. Not to plug our system, but we've built a system that has intangible benefits in it because we make it easier for the connectors to make these introductions, and that alone is sometimes the big benefit. So it's a fine line you want to walk, and the most important thing is that trust isn't broken and that social capital is retained with every introduction. Yeah, I definitely like the focus on the trust aspect because it definitely comes down to that. And even, I'm thinking about, I think it was LinkedIn that put out the study. I can't remember who in terms of I can't remember who they partnered with, but about, a lot of people find jobs through sort of loose connections and that kind of thing. But even in those instances, there is some level of trust that exists, even if it's an acquaintance that maybe you haven't even worked with before. But you trust them for some reason. Maybe it's their content, maybe it's whatever. There is a level of trust built that they're comfortable making that referral, either as a, hey, you should get a job here, or hey, you should try to do business with these people, or et cetera, et cetera. Which actually brings me to something you mentioned.
I forgot to write down what you called it, but it really resonated because we call it vectors of influence. So a lot of people think about, like you're saying, it's not just customers, right? It could be employees, and it can be even external people. So we think about these vectors of influence. Talk a little bit more about that. How do you operationalize that?
Yeah. So I think within the ecosystem of any business, it can be its customers, its partners, its advisors, its employees. We even talked about spouses of employees as this extended network of trust, right? That really is about being enabled to be in control over the relationships that they have, be consistently communicated with when they can add value and make an introduction. And a lot of connectors, we found it's really just knowing kind of the status and an update as to what happened, once they made an introduction. So, reminders, notifications, keeping all that, intact is key. But, one thing that we're looking into as well is third degree relationships. So, we look at relationship strength sort of in 5 different levels, from very strong to very weak. And when there's a very strong relationship, this is someone that you're constantly in contact with, you've known for quite some time. They could ask you a favor, you could ask them a favor, and they may know somebody that used to work at a company that you're trying to meet with, right? That would never be something that would be visible. But because of the very strong relationship, it changes that dynamic of that relationship. And so when we think about that extended network, this becomes rather interesting when you start to identify very strong relationships versus just average relationships.
Let's talk about that mindset a little bit, David, because one of the things that we hear constantly, especially as marketers, is you got to give value, give. There's this idea, and we ascribe to it ourselves in our business, the way that we work, Mike and I, and with our clients and with our network of just giving. Being a giver more than a taker, and I think that idea has resonated with a lot of people. It's become sort of par for the course in how people do business nowadays, or more importantly, I should say, how people want to do business, or whom they would like to do business with. But I think that there is still some crunchy feelings around, okay, people get this idea of giving, but what is the mindset when you need to make an ask? Because a referral program is only as good as the ask itself. And if somebody doesn't know how to initiate the ask, or when to make the ask, or what's in it for the other person, right? Understanding the nature of the ask, that could make or break a referral program. No matter how strongly you have those connections with people, it's all about the ask, I think. And so I'm curious to your thoughts, David, about how do you cultivate that mindset for people, especially employees who are, let's say, not senior level executives in a company, but they like the company, they're working there, they're happy there. They feel motivated to get an additional, bump in a paycheck to make a referral, but they don't know how to go about doing that the right way. What is the mindset that somebody organizing this referral program needs to have in order to cultivate the right ask?
Yeah, no, I think that's an important point, because the request itself has got to be timely and relevant, right? So whoever that intended, introduction into is, they have to believe that it's worth their time to make time to have this introduction. And then the outcome has proved to be a useful time spent, right? Otherwise, that trust gets injured a little bit because it was time wasted, right? So the way we approach that problem is sort of requiring that a salesperson provide that context and specificity, whether that's third-party intent data, whether that's a quote, from a press release, or something in the 10K that ties it back to why it would be relevant to this person. That becomes an important part of what gets crafted in the request. And then, one of the ways too that we've found can work really well is that a referrer can forward an email that's been crafted by the person making that request. And if it's a clean looking, consistent format where the message really is, hey, Mike, I'm forwarding a message I got from a colleague of mine who was interested in meeting with you. if you believe this is timely and relevant, would love to make the introduction. If it's not, don't sweat it. Look forward to seeing you in the next few weeks, uptown or whatever, right? So in that case, you're kind of more of a someone who's trying to provide value add, right? This could be something that is top of mind right now. This could be something that you're evaluating. And so I think when you have, something specific like intent data, then you're actually, helping them, right? You're sort of, giving them a reason to reach out. So I think that's always really important when you craft these requests and when you ever think about tapping into a relationship, because it's deposits and withdrawals, and you can only, do so many before, it's the boy that cried wolf, and you really want to make each of those deposits count.
Right, right. And so kind of extrapolating from there further, I think what I'm understanding is that in order to really have a successful referral partnership, a referral program, and activate your employee base, there really needs to be a level of education and a mindset of going into this is, okay, we need to train our employees, or we need to equip our employees with messaging, with maybe, some quotes, some PDFs, some documents, a little bit of a toolkit. And we're going to talk about tools later on in the segment, so we can maybe save this for then. But that's what I'm hearing. Would you say that that's the right mindset people need to have when thinking about activating their employees?
I think so, because you do want some consistency with how this works, right? And obviously, a lot of companies are encouraging employees to, share their voice on social and promote brands that way. And you don't want to put up too many guardrails, but you certainly want to have a system in place where there's quality and consistency. And that's, when we think about operationalizing it, really where that, toolkit comes into play.
Excellent. So I want to two hypothetical people I want to put you into their shoes. The first one being, let's say you are the CEO or CRO, let's just say, of a $100 million organization, and you are looking to build a better referral program in-house. What are the skill sets that you need to be successful?
As the CEO?
CEO or CRO, like some C-suite leader who's leading up that project.
Yeah. I definitely think it does start with partners, right? I think when you think about a referral program, those relationships become the first place that any, strong referral program starts. And you look at synergistic businesses, channel partners, complementary applications, and enriching those relationships at the most senior level so that there's true collaboration between both teams. I think that in a CRO role or a CEO role would be the first place I would start. But of course, then it becomes sort of a culture shift if you want to activate the rest of the organization, where there's a common language everybody's speaking. There's an opportunity for everybody to participate. And I think like that is something then you're consistently talking about, as a leader. And so again, we're talking about operationalizing this, but it becomes part of how you think about your metrics and KPIs as it relates to, let's say, top of funnel production. It's no longer, just another, lead. It's really an input metric for marketing that becomes absolutely critical. So I think just attention to it, where and understand conversion rates are higher, average deal size is bigger, sales cycles are shorter. It's affecting every deal velocity metric, and you're attuned to that pretty closely.
Is there anything from that senior level position that you can do to accelerate the program?
I think I go back to partners. I think that's probably an underutilized channel. I think in a lot of companies where it exists, and then it's a really sort of loose relationship that isn't cultivated as well as it can be in a lot of companies. You have a strong channel partner leader There's been some great hardware companies that have done that. That's how I think you can accelerate it really quickly. I do think if you are the executive and you're participating, right, you can lead by example. So if you're actively making these introductions and you're expecting your direct reports and your peers to do the same, then that sort of trickles down to the rest of the organization, and people start to feel comfortable with it too.
Yeah. I've seen it done really well in the cybersecurity space, the CRM space. That's where I've seen it done really well, as well as some electronics manufacturing, things like that.
Yeah. Mike, you asked David if he was like a CEO, a chief executive officer in a company, if he was going to be implementing a type of program. And I wanted to clarify with David, does it necessarily have to come from the C-suite? And is the C-suite, a member of the C-suite, the best person to implement a type of a program like this? Should it be the marketing leader? Should it be the sales leader? Should it be somebody in customer service? Or is it more nuanced than that, and it really just depends on the size of the organization?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's all the above. Everybody's got a different role, right? I think from, the most senior level, if that person, again, is actively participating and reinforcing the importance of it and presenting metrics on how it's impacting the business, then, everybody's, going to get behind it a little bit more. But you can get into, the field marketing team, and they're going to be the ones that really think about how do we activate this? How do we create some contests internally? How do we recognize and reward? How do we, reinforce this? So I think there's, a role for, all the constituents to play in a really strong referral program.
So that was the first scenario. The second scenario is, let's say you just threw one out that could be interesting. Let's say you're the field marketing leader, right? Or really anybody at that, we'll call it middle management level in an organization. What are the skill sets that person needs to see success with this?
Yeah. I think, again, because how we're thinking about relationships and referrals is broader than just partners, right? I think it's being very creative about how they can, enlist these different groups to participate. I think, the way in which they, make this part of the daily routine for everybody, the way that it becomes a part of the language that everybody starts to speak. We call them relationship leads, right? So you've got MQLs, you've got, third-party intent leads, and then we call them relationship leads in our platform, which is, these are more actionable, much higher converting than any kind of cold outreach. So it becomes part of the workflow for the sales team, part of the routine for other people within the organization to rate their relationships. And so I think someone that can really, promote that and then implement it and measure it, has the skill set to be effective.
What's the most creative thing you've seen, whether it's one of your clients or just outside of your business? What's the most creative thing that you've seen somebody do to activate any constituent in this?
Yeah. I mean, I still think I've seen it a couple times recently is people are starting to feel comfortable with activating employees for this. And it's fascinating it's taken this long. I think it's new, but I think it's called a referathon, that a company had where it's for 1 quarter. They're enlisting, all their employees, to really look at, the history of working relationships that they've had or other relationships. And they're making, it a really fun contest where they're going to have a leaderboard. They're going to have visibility, into who's making the most introductions, and they're going to make it fun. And so, again, I think that's where there's hidden gold for companies that especially sell into buying centers where traditionally sales and marketing teams don't have those relationships. So when we think about engineering or IT and security or finance or operations, it's one thing if a sales and marketing team is selling into their own buying center. It's another if they're going into foreign territory.
What? Talk to me more about or to us, I should say, not just to me. There's two of us here. Um, the Referathon idea. Do you have any other, like, more tactically, like, what have people done? Like, the first thing that came to my head was I was thinking about, like, oh, like the person that makes the most referrals gets an all expenses paid trip to Cabo for a weekend or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think I haven't seen anything like that yet, but that's, dependent on the company, right? And most of them will have some sort of an internal contest like that. I think the flat bonus is fine, but it's not as fun as, having kind of a first, second, and third. What was one that I saw really recently? It was funny. Second place got a set of steak knives, which I thought was very clever and funny. But I can't come up with one for you on the fly here. I'll think about it and come back to it later if I think of one.
Well, similar question from me, David. So we talked a lot about, nurturing the employee base. I'm wondering if you have any awesome examples or something that sticks out of how a company can nurture their external partners. If you've got a contract in place and you've educated, and now your partners are equipped to, let's say, start bringing your name up in conversations or dropping your name within a mutual ICP. What are some like neat, awesome, cool things that you've seen companies do to really nurture those external referral partners and make it so that they're always top of mind with those folks?
Yeah. The lunch and learns are fine, but everybody does those, right? Where you go in and educate on a new capability. I think the best ones spend as much face time as they can. Through this world of Zoom, we've kind of forgotten the value of that. And I even did a training. I participated in a training on site just so I could be near some of our end users a couple weeks ago, and it just made a world of difference. And so I think those happy hours actually make a difference. When you can create, again, a trusted relationship. So now it's not just you've got capabilities that might matter to my customers, but I know that you're a good person, and if I were to put you in front of my customer, I'd feel comfortable that you would be professional and actually make me look good, right? So I think that would be a best practice, is just building that personal trust, that personal relationship, doing something off-site, and I think that can make a big difference.
So it's not really about the t-shirts and the hats and the sexy swag. It's really what you're saying. It's about that relationship. If they were a good enough, if you had a good enough relationship to want to enroll them in your program or nurture them into your program, then you should continue to further that relationship even more. Now that there's an incentive, on the other end.
Well, I think so. I think, again, and it's got to go beyond relationship into business value too, right? So I think like that blend of great relationship, trusting relationship, but 1 + 1 = 3. If we can show specific case studies and examples where a customer had both of our solutions, they win, right? So then there's an incentive to want to have that other person look good, and of course they're going to get paid on it, but they also know that they want to build that relationship with that customer to continue to sell them products and services. So I think you want a perfect combination of business value, 1 + 1 = 3, plus that trust and personal relationship.
What would you say is the biggest mistake that companies make when implementing these programs?
They launch them and then just don't support them effectively. Don't have a regular cadence of communication and follow up. They don't track and measure the effectiveness of it. They become maybe one-sided, right? Where one partner's more willing to actively participate than another one. And then reps' expectations are not met. And so they sort of give up because, it doesn't yield the outcomes. And I also think that the incentives have to be structured properly. And again, we're focused on partner referral programs right now, but I think like that becomes a big incentive for that salesperson to decide whether or not they want to make an introduction because their time is valuable. So I think those are some of the things that can break down to where those relationships don't necessarily work. And frankly, you can have too many referral partners. You could have where you dilute your time and you don't focus enough. So 5 great ones is probably better than 15 low quality ones that don't really yield a whole lot.
I think here the adage of quality over quantity applies, right? It applies in most things in life. It's better to have fewer quantity but really high quality than greater quantity and really poor quality. So makes total sense here. David, let's, Mike, unless you have any other skill set questions, I'd love to jump into tool sets.
Not as much questions as more of thinking about what you both just said. It's recognizing, kind of thinking about this opportunity cost is what I'm looking at in terms of every partner or whether it's a formal partner or just a influencer or whatever that you're working with from a referral perspective, it takes time to manage that relationship. And all the time you're spending, it's an opportunity cost for something else you could be doing, whether within the program or outside of the program. And I think that to me is an important thing to call out, because I think I agree with you, David, where a lot of people kind of go too broad, like, oh, well, just the more the better, right? And they forget or they don't think through what it actually takes to maintain and build and nurture these relationships for them to actually be effective and fruitful. And they end up spending maybe a little bit of time on each, but in aggregate, so much time that nothing happens.
Well, and I think a lot of people get trapped into, if I'm having a conversation with you and I learn pretty quickly, maybe you're not going to be able to help me, then, my inclination is to try to wrap up that conversation really quickly, when the reality is, invest time to listen and to be authentic and to have that conversation. Because by the end of our conversation, maybe you will say to me, hey, I know that this isn't a good fit for me, but I've got 3 people that are perfect for you. And what ends up happening is that trust is established because you took the time and the effort, to build a real relationship. And more times than not, that ends up opening doors that you would have never thought could be opened. And that's where I think the best connectors are not networkers. They're not sort of like, it's not how many people can I connect with. It's how many true relationships do I have where they can, trust me to help them because I want to genuinely. And as a result, they'll help me if I need help too.
All right, well, let's talk about tool sets. We talked a little bit earlier in the conversation that there needs to be some, especially if you're trying to activate your employees, there needs to be some kind of a toolkit to help them be successful in making the ask. David, I'm curious, what additional tools, and these could be, platform tools, these could be physical tools, these could be just training as an example, training as a tool set. What kinds of tools do you think somebody needs to have or bring in when they want to implement a referral program in their organization?
Yeah. I think every company's got a CRM, right, where they're organizing target accounts, whether it's Salesforce or HubSpot or some other CRM, like all of it's managed and organized through a CRM, and it all sort of starts and ends there. And then as you get into, contact data, you're talking about Zoom Info and LinkedIn and so forth. And so we could go on and on. There's a lot of tool sets. But when we start to think about referrals specifically, I think Crossbeam's done a terrific job in terms of sort of partner overlap and, what they've been able to do to sort of map, where partners exist. And selfishly, at SmallWorld, what we're looking to do is to create and operationalize relationships at scale, and we're unlocking trust as a way to get an audience that you otherwise wouldn't be able to get, right? And so with that, it's a easier, faster user experience for that person that's going to be the referrer, because they now can offer help and see companies where they used to work or that are close to them in proximity because we use location, or are where they have the most LinkedIn connections. So having an easy way for me to offer help, but then also we talked about forwarding an email, creating a user experience where with a couple clicks, I can make that introduction. And with confidence, I can know the status of that introduction as it makes its way through the funnel, because everybody that we speak to, wants to be able to know what happened. And it's not enough to make that introduction and then it just kind of goes into the abyss, right? And there's no way to really know. So one thing we're excited about is if it's a SmallWorld lead and it makes it all the way through to closed won, there's a dollar amount attached to that. And that person can feel really good about the impact that they're making on the business when it's all said and done. So, I think that inspires participation and certainly helps, as people are making those introductions and referrals.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that because I'm just thinking about all the times I've made intros for a variety of reasons. And unless I hear back from that person, I'm always reaching out going, hey, remember I introduced you to so-and-so? How'd that go? What'd you think?
Yep.
Right. Because I also intrinsically want to know, did I make the right intro?
Right.
That's right.
Because that reflects on me. Right. And sometimes the answer is, well, you know what? It wasn't really that great. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Now I know.
Well, and sorry, just to build on that, you certainly want to close the loop because one, it shows you appreciated it. It shows gratitude and they appreciate that. But believe it or not, then they'll circle back with that person. Hey, how did it go? And if it went well, their willingness to want to make more introductions proactively goes way up because one, you've closed the loop, but two, they know that you sounded professional and it went well. And so they can actually grow their social capital with other people that look just like that person. And so there's a myriad of reasons to close the loop after, having a successful introduction.
So really bottom line, when it comes to tools, there's a number of tools that need to be implemented and some that already exist in an organization like a CRM, some sort of an education toolkit for your employees or for your external partners. But above and beyond all of that, really what I'm hearing is it's about visibility. It's about making sure that the referrer and the referee are coming full circle and seeing that visibility that yes, referral was made. This is a great referral. We're starting conversations. Thank you so much. Or referral made, not a great fit, but appreciate it. And here's what we're doing to follow up with this person, or we're going to send them a lovely gift card for their time, or whatever that might, whatever your company's policy is around gifting. And some companies are very into gifting, some are not, but it's always great, I think, to reward somebody with some kind of remuneration, whether that's a dollar amount for closed won deal or some other kind of some other kind of intrinsic reward to say, hey, thanks so much. Not a great fit, but would love to keep in touch with you either way. Long story short, what I'm loving what you're saying here, David, is visibility is key. So whatever tools you use, and SmallWorld should maybe definitely be high on your consideration, the idea is visibility is critical.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, we've built a capability into our system that you described with a partner called Thanks without an A, that allows you to show that gratitude through whether it's a $25 gift certificate or, bottle of wine, cup of coffee. It can just be that closing of the loop that shows that appreciation.
Awesome. Well, we are at the segment where we want to talk results. So David, we'd love to hear if you have maybe some results of your clients or others, real world
Even
results.
internally to your business.
Yeah.
Or exactly, maybe it's an example internally at your business. If somebody were to, implement a referral program and have the mindsets that we talk about, enlist the skill sets, use the tool sets, what kind of results can they achieve? And more specifically, what kind of results have you seen out there that you can share with us on the show?
Yeah. So I think, any sales and marketing team looks at, kind of two big things, right? It's size of the pipeline, and then it's conversion rates. Of course, there's deal size and all of that too, but you're really looking at quality and quantity. And so when we look at conversion rates for introduction requests into referrers who have expressed a strong or very strong relationship with a target prospect, they will say yes 83% of the time when they're asked for an introduction into that particular person. once they say yes, that meeting actually gets scheduled about 71% of the time. So I think the rough math is 56% of the time, if you're a salesperson and you request an introduction into someone who has said they're a willing connector, who has a very strong relationship, if you compare that to cold outreach or other methods of getting that meeting and SQL, and then also remember that's typically into a more senior level person, right? So it's not a manager level, this is VP or above, and the time in which then you can get that meeting. So instead of it being 6 to 8 weeks, that meeting happens in 2 weeks. And so you're really impacting every part of the deal velocity metrics with an effective referral program. Those are the numbers that we've seen in our system. So when we think about the impact, and that's across our customers and how they're making introductions, it's very, very impactful.
How much does? Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. As you were talking, thought came to mind, which is how much does scale factor into the success equation? Meaning, is what you're talking about, is that only effective if you're a company with whatever 10 or more salespeople or SDRs? Is scale a factor? I guess is the short question.
Yeah, I mean, when we think of connectors in our system, these are anyone connected to the business. The smaller the company, the less connectors you'll have. But we see, a really great match rate and really great success, even with like 50 connectors in the system. So this can still be super beneficial to a smaller company. The other thing that, we've got ready to move to production pretty soon is an external network. And we talked about this, but this will be a much more carefully curated, sort of anonymized, non-competitive way to connect with a target prospect where there truly is a real relationship there, and it truly is timely and relevant to the target prospect. And so the idea there is we'll create the motion of reciprocity between two people that can both mutually benefit. And in that case, it's infinite scale, because in theory, that external network can become as big as it can be. And the mission and vision for us is every single target prospect, every person you're seeking to meet has a relationship, has multiple relationships, both personal and professional. There's a way to get to them if you've got a compelling message. We talked about this, I think, Mike, too. It's, sales is about timing and trust. And this idea of trust means that you'll unlock doors with an audience that didn't know that they had a problem to solve. So oftentimes sales teams are running after kind of the intent-based leads and the people that are in market, or we've got this, lead who what the truth is there could be a perfect persona, fits your ICP in the right vertical. They have the exact same problem that you're solving for one of your best customers, right? And they still aren't answering your emails because they're deaf to cold email, and they're still not reading your ABM content because they're too busy. But as soon as somebody within your network that knows them reaches out and says, I think it's worth 30 minutes of your time, you'll get that meeting within a week or two. And then you've got the audience that you need, and they were never in market before. So that's the power of it if it's done right.
Yeah, and I love that, because we consistently talk to people that are kind of focused on ABM and intent data. And my comment to them a lot of the time is like, if you're waiting for those intent signals, you're probably too late. Because by the time they're in market, they've already gotten an introduction to somebody. They've already asked their referral group to, hey, I've got this problem. Who should I talk to? And if you weren't on that list, good luck.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. And listen, I'm a believer in intent data, because I think that obviously is a signal. But I couldn't agree more with you. Where you want your brand top of mind all the time, and that's why marketing still matters. And that content, and that, like you said, you're sort of giving Gabby early in the conversation around creating great content and drawing them in through levity and sort of irreverent stuff, and then you sort of can make the ask. But at the end of the day, that trust creates an audience with somebody that you really want to speak to that oftentimes is just not accessible.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. There's nothing more to say, folks, here. It's all about relationships. This is what we believe at Proofpoint. We talk about relationship-led growth.
We talk about relationships at scale, too. I think there's a lot of similar language here.
There's a lot of similarities here in the way that we approach marketing and the way that you approach specifically referral partnerships, but really leveraging relationships for business value. So that's it. People just get on your relationships, focus on those relationships. David, thank you so much. We're going to jump. Actually, let me ask a question, because normally Mike always has something else he wants to add. Mike,
I don't have anything else. This is a good place to stop.
Okay, nothing else to add here, folks.
Relationships are everything. Done.
Let's talk about, let's move into the lightning round. So, David, we're going to try to stump you. No, I'm just kidding. These are easy questions. Whatever comes to mind. We call it a lightning round. That by no means does it mean you have to be fast. Just, things that come to your mind that make sense for these questions. So I guess I will take us through that here. David, what is the main KPI you use to evaluate marketing success?
Conversions.
What's something new you're looking forward to testing this year?
Our external network, we're calling super connectors.
What's a marketing best practice that you hate and would like to see disappear?
Retargeting.
What is your least favorite business word or phrase?
I'll go with core competency.
What is your favorite business or marketing book?
0 to 1 by Peter Thiel.
And what's the best business or marketing advice that either you have given or that was given to you?
Pricing is underrated. It's a very important part of capturing as much value as possible.
And last but not least, what is a favorite tool or platform that you cannot live without in your business?
I love Twitter. I hate to say it. No, we can't live without. My engineers would love to answer this question, but Slack is of course what we communicate with constantly all day. So I'll say Slack.
Excellent choice.
Master Marketer After Hours.
All right, is this going to be a new segment for
I don't know, maybe. If usually we run over, but we didn't in this case. You mentioned you hate remarketing. I want to know why. What's your yeah.
Retargeting, it works, but it's so annoying to me because you go to a website, maybe you already even made a purchase there. This has happened to me several times, right? And then you're getting these ads that are totally not relevant. And I know whether or not I want to go back to that website, right? I think, it just happens so frequently in social media that you're like, it's so obvious on Facebook. And so I know that if I'm going to, Zappos or I'm just going to get crushed in my feed. And I think just consumers are smart, and I don't know. I mean, it works. Listen, it works. So you got to do it, but it's just one of those annoying things.
No, I have to ask the question. I'm curious, do you have that same reaction to retargeting on the B2B side as on the B2C side?
Like I said, it works. So I would always sponsor to do it. It's not like it's, hey, listen, this works. This is still top of mind. It's more of I almost took the consumer perspective when I said that, because it's like, all right, now you're going to crush me with, all these ads, and I can see right through it. So, as a decision maker, do we need to do retargeting? I'd say yes, because it can work and it can show that it has effectiveness. As a consumer, I'd love to turn it off.
Yeah,
probably the best way to
well,
describe it.
And the reason I asked the question, I think it's because I think I feel the exact same way. I think that I see this on the B2B side where I think people put too much stock in this mere exposure effect. I'm like, okay, you're selling a $100,000 product. You're not Coca-Cola trying to sell another 12-pack. There's a difference. Where it's not just get your logo out in front of somebody with the same thing over and over and over again. But, when we do it for our clients, we try to layer in kind of a series of educational things and whatnot, where it's not just buy our product, or service, or whatever it is. So I want to talk about that because you're the first one that said it, but I think everybody thinks it. So
yeah,
that's all I had.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, advertising. It's so interesting because I mean, you look at Tesla, right? I mean, look at Uber now advertises, but they never did before. There were so many brands that can be built now on social and just through word of mouth that like it's a really interesting thing. And it's like you're either trying to like you know communicate trust, right, and just that brand affinity. Like if it's FedEx, it's like, hey, I know that if I send it by FedEx, like it's going to get there, and you just because you've seen it enough times and it's top of mind. And it's such a psychological, and there's enough studies out there to prove kind of the reinforcement that you need as a brand. But no, I'm like you. I mean, I'm fascinated at how much money is spent just through brand awareness versus just like really relevant targeting to a very relevant target audience with a really smart message. So yeah, I'm with you.
Yep, that's actually where I'm looking to bring somebody on the show to talk about that kind of stuff specifically. So stay tuned for when that happens.
Yeah, for sure.
So David, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Where can our audience get a hold of you if they want to learn more about what you do and your philosophy around relationships at scale?
Yeah, you can visit us at smallworld.ai. We'd love to hear from you and set up time for a demo. There's a self-guided product tour as well on our website. So would love to have a conversation.
And it sounds also like Twitter is a good place to catch you as well, right?
Sometimes I'm a consumer is more than a tweeter, but yes, I'm on there too at David Rush.
Excellent. Well, David, thank you for joining us today on the show, and everyone else, thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Master Marketer Show.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Master Marketer Show. We'll be back next week with more B2B marketing success stories. Visit our website, www.proofpoint.marketing, for the full episode library, complete with show notes, guides, templates, and more. Make sure to follow Proofpoint Marketing on LinkedIn and YouTube so you never miss an episode. Listen every Wednesday wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time.